This is episode 150, and today we are going to be talking about eating disorders. Welcome to Wellness in Every Season, the podcast where we explore the rich tapestry of wellness in all of its forms. I'm your host, Autumn Carter, a certified life coach turned wellness coach, as well as a certified parenting coach dedicated to empowering others to rediscover their identity in their current season of life. My goal is to help you thrive both as an individual and as a parent. Today I have with me a friend of mine, Geoff Walker. He is a retired Navy veteran and he has walked some of this journey. And I am so grateful, Geoff, that you are here with us because I know that this journey has been difficult. It's been a winding road for you. And I love what you said right before I hit record that it made the biggest difference for you to realize that you are not alone in this. And that is the reason why you are here to share with us. So thank you so much for being on.
Yeah,
And
happy to be here.
where would you like to start with this?
Oh man. Yeah, I retired from the military, from the Navy specifically in 2021. Ultimately, the thing that led to me retiring, walking away a little bit earlier than I initially wanted to, was my struggle with an eating disorder, specifically bulimia nervosa. I developed that over the course of my 21 years in the Navy, and the Navy helped me to start my journey for recovery for that, and I'm grateful for that. But there's definitely a correlation between, I think, eating disorders and the military environment that I think a lot of people probably struggle with, and they probably struggle with it in silence. So that's one of the things that I like talking about with people and like informing people and educating folks on, how the military can be triggering and generate eating disorders in people.
I know when I first met your wife, so I became friends with him through his wife. She's amazing. So are you. But I met her first, and she told me that you retired due to mental health. I had no idea it was because of this. That's hard.
Yeah, one of the things that makes eating disorders really challenging to deal with is that there's often a lot of positive things that come along with it. A lot of people that are in eating disorder recovery describe it as being in an abusive relationship with yourself. And just any abusive relationship, ending that relationship can be very difficult because there's things that are positive about that relationship that make it hard to go away and hard to step away from. For instance, there's a lot of comorbidity with anxiety that goes along with eating disorders. Also, a lot of people that struggle with eating disorders are high performing individuals because they're very self critical, driven, overachieving. They're usually their own worst enemy when it comes to self criticism and trying to achieve perfection. A lot of those characteristics that I had through my eating disorder and that self hatred that is generated through that, a lot of success at work. I was very high performing. The last role that I had inside of the Navy was what's known as the chief of the boat, which is the senior enlisted person on a nuclear submarine. You're like the right hand man to the captain. It's one of the highest things you can do inside of the military. It's the highest rank you can get, and it's one of the highest responsibilities you can have, where you're effectively responsible for the everyday operations and the well being of 155 sailors on a nuclear submarine. Those characteristics that went along with the eating disorder. And I don't like to give too much credit to my eating disorder. Like I was still high performing before that. But I think that kind of constant desire for perfection on like the physical side of things naturally translated over to perfection in my professional identity as well, which made me very high performing and very good at my job. So that was one of the things that kind of made it hard to walk away from and hard to give up that relationship and even enter into recovery. So, amongst many other things that we can go into.
Something I've never talked about. Your wife doesn't even know this. When I was in high school, I started cutting myself.
Okay.
And for me, I didn't do it for very long. And I actually used a steak knife. I wasn't trying to kill myself. I just needed a release. And I
Mm.
wonder if that was the same idea going through your mind. Can you unpack that part for us of
Yeah, sure.
going through your mind? How is this helping release things or control things? Because it sounds like there was control with it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it boils down to control. Most eating disorders do, where it's definitely I think also with particularly with bulimia, there's a physiological sort of release that goes along with it. There's a high that comes along with binge and purge, which sort of feeds into that addictive nature of it. Yeah, absolutely. It was a release, and it was a thing that I could control. Not only just like controlling my weight for reasons, and that I could get into that if you want, as far as like the genesis of it. I was never, overweight really as a child or anything like that. This isn't something that stemmed from childhood trauma or anything like that. It was pretty much exclusively because the military has a very high body composition standards.
Can you explain?
And
I know
oh,
from friends,
so you have semi-annual physical readiness tests.
and you have
And
to wait.
so the physical readiness test, this is one of the things that really leads into like why other people in the military struggle with this. So you have the physical readiness test, right? In the Navy, that's a mile and a half run. It used to be push-ups. I think it's a plank now, or it's still push-ups, but they got rid of crunches and they made it a plank, just a different core workout. But it doesn't matter how well you do on any of those things if you don't make weight. It still counts as a failure if you fail to make weight. So it's very prejudicial against people that are skinny fat, if that makes sense, or people that are like lift weights that don't meet the Victorian body standards that a body composition assessment, the way that they do it. So the second part of it is the body composition assessment. And that is where they just basically take a measuring tape and they go around your neck, and they take a measuring tape and they go around your waist. For women, they do the hips as well, but for men, it's just the waist and the neck. And basically, that gives a figure that's on a little chart, a table. And that table, they use that to ascertain what your body fat percentage is. It's not accurate. It's been proven scientifically to not be accurate, but it's convenient. But those numbers definitely feed into like the eating disorder mindset where you become obsessed over the numbers. Like I knew because I was 72 inches tall, I had to have a difference between my neck and my gut, a difference. At 72 inches, it basically equates to a one to however many inches there are. So say if I had a 17-inch neck and a 39-inch waist, that would be a 22% body fat. And 22% body fat was like the cutoff for it's if you fail or not. There was a little bit of a gradual, they allowed you to go up to 24% based on age, 23 and 24%. As you got older, I guess they expect you to not be in quite as peak physical shape. But if you didn't pass that circumference check, it doesn't matter how well you did on the run, the push-ups, or the sit-ups, you would fail the physical readiness test.
What happens if you fail?
It's a, to use a phrase that's probably a little bit morbid, it's a career bullet in the head. You are ineligible for advancement, and especially if you're in any sort of leadership position. If you're, they refer to it as like E7 and above in the military. E7 and above, or if you're an officer, it's basically you're going to get looked over for promotion. It resets like your counter for making chief petty officer in the Navy to like a 5-year counter that would get reset. You have to have 5 years of passing for them to like look at your package, everything that you've done in your career. And if you have that failure on there, it's just basically you're done, take you out to pasture.
No grace
So,
period?
mm, no. Like I could tell you that as a chief of the boat, if I would have failed one, I would have probably been taken out of my position because you can't be expected to be in charge of the physical readiness program, which you are as the cob, making sure that PT is done every day or the necessary times that you find time to do it in the day. If you're overweight and you're sitting there trying to wag your finger and tell everybody else what to do, that doesn't fly in the military. That's going to be labeled as hypocrisy. You're going to lose every battle that you're trying to fight from a leadership perspective. They're going to equate that to everything. It's going to be, oh, the Cobb's a hypocrite. The Cobb can't even make the standard himself. How the hell is he expecting us to do? It's this cycle of things. So probably wouldn't have been in my position if I would have failed one at any point.
And do you feel like you're given, it's like in school where you're given a very short amount of time to eat and you eat whatever you can. Did that negatively
No,
impact you at all?
it does. Not only that, but it's just like the overall quality of food that like you have access to on a submarine. You get fresh food for the first week of underway, and then you run out of fresh food, but you run out of eggs, and then you're on canned food and frozen food for however many weeks or months that you're underway. And it's a diet that's heavy in sodium. There's limited workout equipment. It's tough. Now, granted, we still make do, and there's lots of people out there that do it. But unfortunately, a lot of the times with eating disorders, both bulimia and anorexia, the other thing that goes along with that is excess working out. Some people struggle with bulimia, in particular with men. The exercise eating disorder is worse than the purging aspect of it. I can tell you it was a mixture of both for me. I could run far. I was running half marathons and 5, 6 miles a day on top of the eating disorder. So I think I just naturally have a body that just wants to be a certain weight. And that's natural and healthy for me. I think that's a challenge too with when you talk about there's a big movement within eating disorder recovery and stuff. It's called health at any size. I don't know if you've heard of that before. Um, but what is health? If I get my weight down to 180 pounds, but I feel like I want to jump off a cliff or blow my head off, am I healthier than somebody that's 250 pounds? No, I'm not, because that person is crippled from whatever mental thing they have going on. Maybe their life expectancy is less because of the threat of suicide or other comorbidities that go along with having an eating disorder. 180-pound person.
I didn't even think about the making weight, but I just thought about how you're expected to just wolf down food just as soon as you can. And they show it in movies. I have family in the military. I grew up in a military town, so I know that's the way it is when it's chow time. It's just pile it
Yeah,
in.
it's
Next.
still it's still tough. Like 4 years after, I really have to think about mindful eating is not a thing in the military.
No.
It's generally, oh shit, like I got 5 minutes to eat before my next meeting or whatever, or my next event or evolution or something. So let's get down there, and working lunches are a very common thing inside of the military.
And I tend to do that to myself.
Yeah, for sure. Where
Yeah.
it's like you're so busy taking care of your kids and
Especially if it's
have
something
to.
I know they want and I don't want to share.
I
You
know a
have
lot of
kids.
parents just pick off like whatever their kids don't eat.
Yeah, my
And
husband sometimes I'll look at him like, "Are you poisoning us? Why aren't you eating?" I'm just waiting for them to decide they're full and I'll just eat whatever they don't.
yeah, eat a bowl of cold mac and cheese or whatever. Yeah, for
Yep.
sure.
And what you were talking about originally, for those who are wondering, is called orthorexia, where you
There you go. Yep.
can be super hyper focused in the exercise arena. You can be super focused on the nutritional content instead of, for me, what it all boils down to is being really mindful and remembering, evolution speaking, our bodies know what they're supposed to be doing. We get in the way of that.
Hmm.
And if we are craving something, generally speaking, sometimes it's unpacking it to be like, oh, it's not actually chocolate that I'm craving. Actually, I need almonds when it's that time of the month for females. But when you're craving something, that is showing you that you're missing something from your diet that your body needs. So it's taking the time for that. And
Yeah, that's why diets are so challenging, is because if you feel like you're depriving yourself of something, that's also a big reason I got rid of the concept of ascribing morality to food.
explain
It's a
this.
terrible thing to do. I can't have a slice of cheesecake. It's bad for me. Well, there's nothing wrong with cheesecake. Cheesecake has things that you need. Cheesecake has fat that your body needs. It has carbohydrates that you need. Yeah, it probably has too much sugar, but dairy, it has protein in it. So to sit there and say that something is bad and that you can't have it are you bad? Are you a bad person because you had something bad? Like it's foolish to ascribe morality to our food because all food has some sort of intrinsic value,
For
except
me,
probably like a Twinkie or something.
don't be
But there's
throwing those
joy
in.
associated with that though.
Actually, no, I was thinking Twix. I don't like Twinkies. I like Twix.
Okay.
But for me, what's helped me is how am I going to feel after I eat this? How many
Mm,
times have you eaten something that looks so delicious and you're eating it and you're like, that was a waste of calories. I really want to just spit this out, but whoever made it is watching or whatever. So there's that thought. And for me, doctors even frown at me when I tell them this. But before I had my gallbladder removed, I was allergic to dairy.
okay.
And doctors are like, that's not a thing. I'm like, it is for my body. But what was hard for me is doing that whole dairy's bad thing because the more I did that, the more I wanted it. And
Mm,
let me go over how my body feels when I have this. And it made it a lot easier for me. And the times that I did choose to have dairy, remembering I am choosing this, I am choosing to have this pain for the next 3 days. This had better be worth it. And in the moment,
mm.
yeah, it's totally going to be worth it. But then when I'm in pain for 3 days, absolutely not. So I totally get where you're coming from this side. And it's very interesting to me because I hate throwing up. It just triggers memories of when I was a kid and I must have had the flu or something and it must have traumatized me because I still have it in my head where if I throw up once, I'm not going to stop myself. So I hate throwing up, but I do know because we were really sick with the flu recently enough, how much of a relief that my body has after it finally has that moment. I can see where you're going with having that feeling afterwards.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, it was a high. And it came from like the control side of things, but it also came from like the physical side of things. And that's part of like why when I try and describe to people like what living with bulimia was like, is that it's basically it was this constant cycle of going from extreme hunger to overeating, and then the guilt that went along with overeating, the anxiety that came along with, oh my God, I got to get rid of this now. I have to find a way to excuse myself. I have to find a bathroom now. To the release of getting rid of it, and then just the starting that cycle all over again, and just doing that for years and years. And yeah, I fought with it for about 10 years. And ultimately, the thing that sort of led to me, and I told Amanda at one point in time that I had been struggling with it, and she tried to help in her way. And I wasn't honest about the level in which I had been struggling with it. And ultimately, the thing that sort of led to me deciding to get help was from a professional level, realizing that I wasn't delivering to my sailors the quality of service that they deserved from their cop. And at that point, I spoke to the psychiatrist that was at the submarine squadron and told him, like, and I'm eternally grateful for that guy. It's a guy named Matt Raridan, really good dude. He was a commander, and I had a really good relationship with him in my duties as Cobb because I used him as a resource for my sailors were struggling with mental health things. And it was ironic that like I had to ultimately go up there and just be like, "Hey, look, man, like this is what I've been dealing with," and he believed me. And everybody that needed, and that was a big reason that I thought that I avoided help for so long, is because I didn't think that people would believe me because it's eating disorders, that's a female problem, or there's no way that a guy, a 38-year-old man, could be struggling with this or something. So that was part of like my aversion beyond just like, oh, I got it. I can keep this under control, or I can, it's not that bad. And then like just going through like the DSM-5 with him and just being like, how many times is this happening per day or per week? It's like, okay, 2 to 3 times per day, probably 15 to 20 times per week. It's like, holy shit. Yeah, yeah, man, like you meet the clinical definition for this. Like you need to get help. And ultimately, like it took a long time to find a place that took men. So that was a part of the care plan that I got from the psychiatrist was like, hey, we need to hit this hard. And just like the realization that like eating disorders are really challenging to treat from a clinical perspective, just because there's so much comorbidity with other things and they're very severe as far as the negativity that comes along with the people. So a lot of mental health professionals won't touch it with like a 10-foot pole. There's plenty of psychiatrists or therapists that are like, nope, not going to take on eating disorder patients just because they know that they're not equipped for it. It's a very specialized type of practitioner that has to take it on. So the initial recommendation was for me to go to residential treatment. It was tough to find a place that took men for residential treatment just because, not to say that men don't struggle equally with women, but women are far more likely to come forward and ask for help. So a lot of the facilities that do residential treatment or PHP, partial hospitalization, they're very safe spaces for women, which can preclude having men there for it. But this place that I went to was in Durham, North Carolina. It was called Veritas. I think it's been bought by another place now. I think it's called like the Emily Project or something, which is like a larger organization that sort of absorbed it. But yeah, they took men for residential. And I got to go there for a month and did a full residential treatment. It was really hard. Like that was like the scariest night of my life. Like before I checked in there, I had the worst like purge like beforehand, the worst like binge and purge beforehand. I was such a nervous wreck and just it's very eating disorder treatment's like super controlled. Like it's you have to go in there and just be like, okay, like I am completely giving up control of this, and you're told everything. You're told when you can go to the bathroom. You're told when you can eat. You're told when you can sleep. You're told what you do. Like it's very regimented. Which ironically enough was actually that part of it was easy for me because like with like my military mindset, it's like, okay, just tell me what to do and tell me where to be. Like I don't have to think about it.
Where I'm like,
um,
no, don't tell me what to do.
no,
But you have to get to that point of letting go of control. So I guess that part can make
yeah.
sense too. In a month, I guess I'm surprised it was that short for how long you suffered from it.
So I did a month there, and then I did a month of partial hospitalization. So it was like a 9 to 5 thing for the second month. And then I graduated out from different levels of care. And then I did IOP. And then now, years later, I still have just a therapist that I still deal with and process things. But I think I was so terrified of going to treatment and feeling like I was going to be the only person there with my story. And it was very integral to my recovery that I made connections with people that completely objectively I would have never had anything in common with. Like it was like 22-year-old college students, women. One of the things that's really changed my opinion on transgender issues is there were two trans men that were there, and they were the only other dudes that were there with me. And it was, we're the guys. So it's like we rolled together and stuff. And that sort of led to me just becoming friends with them and just hearing their story and their experience and stuff and just being like, you guys are just like me. Like you're just dudes, want the same things. But then just having those connections with other people and just seeing how similar we were with not just our symptoms, but just the things that caused our symptoms and realizing that it's not about weight. We already established that it's about control. But eating disorders aren't about weight. And that's tough for some people on the outside to hear or to process, but it's entirely like a control thing. So going into treatment and meeting other people and making connections and just being in that room for group sessions and there's 20 other people in there and everybody's like nodding their head at like, your story instead of giving you quizzical looks or looks of pity or something, which is what I got from other people that kind of knew what my struggle was outside of that environment. and just being like, oh yeah, I totally understand that. And I totally get that. And seeing the same thing and just being like, okay, we're not alone. So another thing that was interesting while I was there, this place had, I think, 20 some odd beds, maybe 24 beds. Another person that was there was another US Navy chief petty officer that was another patient there. And she has become one of my really good friends. She's had her own journey with it and stuff, but our stories were very similar on the Navy side of the house. And the two of us were, wait a minute, what are the odds that, out of this eating disorder treatment facility that, out of the hundreds that probably exist in the world, how is it that two people in the Navy wound up here? And then there was another person who was an Army veteran who was there who had a very similar story. And it was just, okay, like something's amiss here. And that sort of led to a lot of thoughts. And my friend Leah, who I went with, she's taken the ball and just run with it since her retirement. And she, like, that's her whole purpose in life now, is she runs a nonprofit dedicated to helping people in the military with eating disorders. And that's the one that, like, I seen the link to. Yeah, the nonprofit's called Sea Waves. So if you just search for that in Google, I think it's
We'll
seatechwaves.org
have it in
or
the
something like
description.
that. We can put it in the description, but their whole mission is just like the education of the fact that eating disorders exist within the military and like why there's such a proclivity for them. And then usually, like when I explain it to people, it's like people are like, "Oh yeah, that totally makes sense how somebody could develop an eating disorder out of that."
So what
Just
are
that
the
concept.
chances now? What have you discovered?
I don't have empirical data or anything, but I was very transparent in my struggles with this, and I've had numerous people reach out to me via the chief petty officer. Where it's like a fraternal organization. I've had other chiefs or command master chiefs or things reach out to me and be like, "Hey, I've got a sailor that says that they're struggling with this. Can you point them in the right direction?" So there's a lot more data that I know Leah has given on that that says this is how many people and what percentage of men versus women. And keep in mind, a lot of the statistics for men are very skewed because of that whole stigma that's around it. But yeah, it's one of the things I like to talk about because I think that this isn't just about eating disorder specifically, but it's about mental health for men.
I was hoping you would mention that.
We don't have to go it alone. And I think that's necessary in order to break down stigmas and barriers when it comes to that stuff. I don't
I
think that men suck at a lot of things when it comes to mental health.
There's a whole book, Men
Like,
Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus, and so many
I feel
others.
like men are absolutely terrible with like platonic compliments. And it's strange. Like, I've been getting a lot of those like recently over my beard, like just from like random dudes. The guys, it was funny. I was up in Connecticut up at Naval Submarine School, and I must have had 12 different sailors, young guys, 18, 19 years
Well, because
old.
they're jealous.
Yeah, but yeah, they can't actually. Yeah, that was like my usual response. Was like, yeah, you'll get there someday, man. I was like, that's my retirement beard. Just people to just be like, holy crap, man, that's an awesome beard. And it's like, why don't men do stuff like that? That's a really nice shirt. It looks good on you. And it's, I wish men did that better, more, because like when it happens to me, it like makes my day. So I like doing it for other people too.
And you do have an awesome beard. You totally look like a dwarf, which is hysterical to me because you are tall.
Yeah, yeah. And for
That's
like
tiny, so
I was going for the Gimli look when I had it braided and everything,
I was hoping you
for
would
sure.
today.
Oh, no, I took it out. It got to be a little too much. Like there's probably too many food particles inside of the braid, so
That makes sense.
I don't want it to be nasty.
I'm sure your wife appreciates that. So, what I was going to say is, I have a really good friend of mine, and she was struggling with mental health. She was asking for places that I recommended, and this was in the beginning of me becoming a life coach. She was actually living in South Carolina during the time, funny enough. She was looking for places that would not know about her husband being in the military and would not go through TRICARE because She was worried that it would affect his ranking and his promotions, especially if they wanted to go overseas, if there was any indication that she had postpartum depression or she's always suffered from anxiety. Like, not just me being friends with her forever and seeing that, not being a professional who could say, here's your ICD-10 code for this. Can you talk a little bit about that, kind of clue the rest of us in who aren't connected with the military?
This kind of goes like into the perfect mindset that's required, right? So there's absolutely like the Navy will sit there and talk out of its ass and be like, "Oh yeah, we want people to get help, and if your family's not being taken care of, then like we're not doing our jobs," and it's like that. But at the end of the day, where if it comes down to between two people, and this guy's wife is a hot mess, and this hasn't had any indications of that, and I don't want to use the term hot mess. I'm just saying this is how they think. I'm
But
not saying
they're
this.
not even
I'm
in the Navy.
so
They
I'm
just in
saying that
general.
leadership would view it that way to
Yeah.
be like this person's has had family struggles or something. This person hasn't. They're going to go with the other person. That's like a military mindset, and that's challenging because it's like there's so many factors that go into, and the big change that they've tried to do is that it all factors into like war fighting readiness, like your ability. If you're not taken care of at home, then you're not going to be able to deploy or to do your thing or to go take the fight the enemy or whatever that is, or whatever the mission is. Not necessarily combat, but it could be just be a submarine deployment or whatever, which
But if
hopefully
I was in
doesn't go into
charge, if you're
combat.
getting mental health, I'll choose you because you know where to go for your help.
No,
It's hard.
there's merit to that, but it's the same thing with like women in the military, where it's like, when's a good time to have a kid? It's really tough. There was never a good time to have a kid in the military. There's never a good time for a lot of professional working class women to have a kid because it's like you're forced to put your career on hold for however many months. If you live in a developed country for 6 months to a year of maternity leave, or if you live in the US, like our garbage system with you're going to get sneered at for taking 2 weeks of maternity.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, it's tough, and I don't know what the right answer is on that stuff. I agree that like you'd think that the answer would be like this person is taking care of themselves, going to utilize the resources that are available, but it jeopardizes mission readiness at that point. Maybe in like the long term, and I think that's probably the right answer, is looking at it as the long term health of someone's family or something like that. Because at the end of the day, I can't tell you how many times the military has led to divorce or something like that because of just struggles on the family front where just people can't handle it. I feel incredibly blessed and serendipitous that I've had Amanda stick through me through. I mean, we started dating 5 years in 15, 16 years of it. So
You guys had an anniversary recently, so I got to see a picture and you guys are babies.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
we
goodness.
were kids. Yeah.
Yes. So we just dumped on the military in a lot of ways. Let's backtrack and let's go to what would you do differently, knowing that, especially with the government involved, because it takes so long to change course in a ship, so to speak. What could you do differently? And then after that, if you already know exactly what's going to happen to you, you know yourself, what would you do differently? And then what advice would you give to other people at any step of your path that you were on?
It's a great question, and it's one that I've asked myself because I've had the opportunity to ask myself, like, would I change things? And the answer to that now in 2025, 4 years post-retirement, 5 years into recovery, is I wouldn't change. If I had a magic coin that could, or a genie wish or whatever, if I could go back and change it, I don't know if I would because I've learned so much more about myself through the course of recovery and therapy. And then I know that my journey has affected others in a positive way. I've had lots of people reach out to me because I was transparent about it and say, hey, thanks for being open about your own mental health struggles. Because of that, I was able to do it myself and get help. Those instances right there are really what it's all about. And obviously, I could say that I wish I would have gotten help sooner or something like that, or I wish I would have realized that I had a problem sooner. But that's Monday morning quarterbacking. It's not realistic. The realistic answer is, and I look at myself in the sense of one of the thoughts that I had that I've shared with other people is like growth that goes along with eating disorder recovery. And the growth that happens is not just physical because your body is in a state of healing. So you put on a lot of weight and you grow a lot. And it's easy to get wrapped up and focused on that. But what other things have grown during recovery? My capacity for empathy has grown significantly. My self awareness about my realizing like some of the genesis like of my eating disorder. I can get like super deep as to like things that I think that like why it happened beyond just like the PRT aspect of things. I think a lot of the reasons that like my eating just manifested to begin is it was like a backlash against me not being true to myself, being in the military environment. Like I feel like I always have to preface this with the military is a very hyper masculine environment, and I am not a masculine coded person. Not to say that I'm not a man and I don't identify as a man, right? But I feel that as far as like energy, I feel like there's feminine and there's masculine energy that exist. You can view that as like a moon versus sun. Like if you really want to get into the granola eating kind of aspect of things. But like I feel that like the things that matter to me, the things that are more feminine energy aligned. Things like I don't care about winning and losing. Those are not that is not a language that speaks to me. I have a mindset that's more feminine of is everyone having a good time? Is everyone enjoying themselves? I'm very artistic. I find joy in creation. I find joy in the company of others. These are just they're not things that are historically associated with masculinity. And the military, I think being in that environment, it forced me to not be true to myself in a way that I've been able to since going into recovery and separating myself from the military. I feel like my eating disorder was maybe a little bit of a pendulum swing back the other way of like just my psyche being misaligned and being forced to live in a fashion that it wasn't aligned with like my true values of who I was as a person.
For people who are like, this resonates for me because it could be somebody else, or they just autoplay the next episode and they just happen to be listening to this. Think about yourself. If you're not resonating with everything that goes with eating disorders, and if you are not being true to yourself, if you're not taking care of your own wellness and making sure you're aligned, and knowing that when you might be doing the exact same things you were doing 20 years ago, but now you're not feeling aligned because we evolve, we have different needs. It goes with, you can't even see it, but I have right above here is Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Sure.
And once we have this need met, our natural inclination is to be, okay, now I'm ready for this
What's
need to be
next?
met. And you just keep
Yeah.
going. So what works one day won't work the next. And you just unpack that in such a beautiful way of showing that this episode is still for you, even if you don't know someone with an eating disorder, which joke's on you, you do. You just don't realize
Yeah. 100%. Yep.
it.
They're just
Or
hiding it really well.
you don't have one yourself. And chances are, if we really look in the mirror, we all have some kind of maybe on the fringes. We all like that comfort food when we're really stressed out, and sometimes we overdo it for a while, and then we get nervous, so then we're like, I'm just not going to eat for a while. We all do our own things, and we can easily let that go a little too far and a little too far.
There's a a very slippery slope that exists between an eating disorder and disordered eating. And that's like another thing to circle back to the military aspect of thing is that disordered eating is rampant in the military. Even if eating disorders, there may not be data for that, but I can just tell you, like anybody that's in the military is going to be like, oh yeah,
So explain this.
oh like just disordered eating. So things like intermittent fasting. I don't think intermittent fasting is disordered eating,
Hmm.
and people will probably argue against that or whatever. I guess they're trying to
It's a
do it in like a
trend.
heavily controlled fashion. Yeah, it's like every other diet. And so it's things like crash dieting. So before that weigh in, doing things like, oh my God, I'm 10 pounds over and it's 2 weeks before the thing. What am I going to do? Crash diet, exercise too much, like all these things that it's just everything from like people putting hemorrhoid cream on their stomachs and then wrapping in saran wrap and going into sweat rooms, saunas to lose extra weight.
I had a
Um,
guy that I dated who was on the wrestling team in high school. So he
oh,
did the whole
wrestling is
garbage bag
incredibly, yep.
things.
No, so that's another thing. I didn't even get to this point is that eating disorders historically are with professions that are associated with a high body image, with a extremely high body image. So you think modeling, you think
Acting.
dancing, but then you start getting into like men, and you're like wrestling, boxing, like all of these mixed martial arts. Like those things are heavily dependent on your weight. If you don't make weight, then you're not doing your fight. You're out of your class. You're out of your weight range or whatever. So those types of behaviors are all over that stuff. Not only just like on the body image side of things, as far as like weightlifting and fitness culture and things like that. So if you think about it from that perspective, and then you think about the military, and if you fail this, then it's going to end your career. You're not going to advance or whatever. It makes a ton of sense to that whole thing of tying so much of merit to what your weight or what your number is on a scale or something like that. That super high self identity being tied to what you look like. The military places a very high emphasis on that. Yeah,
Oh, I have another question. They're related. So at least that helps. So let me ask the second one and then I can circle back.
sure.
What are the signs? And what do you do if you suspect somebody? And we can even just use your wife. So
Yeah.
what signs should she have seen? Stuff like that.
It's really tough because it's going to manifest in so many different ways. And once you get good at an eating disorder, you get really good at hiding it. Part of the mindset of an eating disorder that is very challenging, and this goes into the difficulty of fighting it, is that you're lying to yourself so frequently that it makes it very easy to just lie to everyone else around you. And that was actually a big thing that sort of led to me seeking help as well. It was just how easy it made it for me to lie to my wife about things. What'd you have for lunch? I had this. And it's just like, boom, just lying. I didn't have lunch. Or I had lunch, but I threw it up. And it's just casual lies. But there's all kinds of stereotypes that exist with it. And I don't want to get too much into those because I remember watching some goofy ABC after school movie in health class in ninth grade about eating disorders. It was about this family that had a kid with an eating disorder. And it was just everything like you'd think, oh, there's all these food wrappers inside of the car. They're in the bathroom too long.
So
What
the
teenager isn't?
classic.
What teenager isn't in the bathroom too long? Whatever. I don't know necessarily what the warning signs are. Being approachable, being in a relationship with somebody that makes them comfortable. And I think just knowing, I think it's more important to reach out to the person with the eating disorder than it is for the people, because that was a thing as part of my recovery where I didn't ask a lot of Amanda, because Amanda did a lot because I went to residential and she was back in Hawaii while I was doing that. It was 2 months away from home leading up until the week before Christmas.
And you have tons of kids.
Yeah, we had 5 kids at the time. And so we have 6 now. I think it's an important thing with people that are dealing with an eating disorder that like don't put too much on your partner. because it's not your partner's job to be your therapist. It's not your partner's job to be your dietitian. Your partner is not part of your care team. Like they're part of your support network, but it's just too much to ask of one person to be all of those things. So I think that the most important thing that like I asked of my wife was like to support me being able to go to therapy, to make sure that there was always like food available in the house for dinner and stuff like that. But like as far as like the forcing confrontation or something, or like going into the bathroom after I use the bathroom, that's not going to help because then it's just going to lead to like confrontation and angst.
More hiding.
Yeah, no, it was tough too, where like in the initial stages of recovery, where it's if I did have a, and this is like an important thing too, it's part of that mindset of recovery where it's if I did have a slip up, what if I did purge? Is that a failure? Do I want to tell her? Because then she's just going to be worried about it. That mindset. And I think that was a big conversation that we had was giving me that space to have my own recovery, to not try and be my therapist and to not try and be my dietitian. And if I had a slip or something that maybe I'm not necessarily going to tell you about, that's between me and my therapist. And I'm not going to put that on you. And that's the way to think of it is like putting it on them, not like hiding it from them. And that sort of goes like into the conversation about like the linearness or not of recovery and what that looks like, the difference between like a slip and a relapse and things like that. So I don't know if I answered your question necessarily. I think I can tell you things not to do as opposed to things to do. And I
No,
think
it's
things
still
not to,
this. So yes, tell us about things not to do.
yeah, don't seek confrontation over it. It's not going to help because then the person's going to get defensive and react to it in a inappropriate way. But I think that you have to establish those boundaries there with your family. Because obviously, like your family cares about you, want you to recover. But again, don't put them in that position where they have to be all those things for you because nobody can do that. They're not professionally trained to be your dietitian. They're not professionally trained to be an eating disorder therapist. They love you and they care for you. So finding ways that they can support you and be there for you without trying to step into those other roles is important.
So along with that, if people are such a heavy topic, let's just start there. Where should people start looking?
Read it about somebody else.
Either one.
There's hotlines. There's the National Eating Disorder Association. For me personally, that initial connection of finding somebody else, just finding some other person that knew what I was going through, even if it's not in the exact same context or affecting my life in the exact same way, but somebody else that got it, that was like, what the, because it's like to a completely outside person to just be like, what do you mean you feel like a sense of release? It feels like doing a drug to throw up. Like you get high off of it. That's just so odd to your average person. So to have somebody else to just be like, yeah, I do that too. And then just connect there. Like to me, that was the beginnings of recovery because it got me out of that initial isolation. It was the initial thing that sort of took me out of that.
That totally makes sense to me because there's times where I am just so sick. And my husband's like, why don't you just try to throw up? And I'm so anti that. And he'll do it and he'll be fine. You know when you've eaten something bad and you just need to for
Sure.
people who
Yeah.
don't have an eating disorder follow along with me. And I'm just like, I can't because I'm just worried that I won't be able to stop and I'm going to be throwing up and it just won't stop. It totally makes sense that not everybody has that ability. So, my other question, people who are listening in the military, what are your recommendations? Because yours was bad enough, it was better for you to be medically discharged, medically retired. What about for others? Is there hope?
Yeah. I definitely think that there's hope. I think that for me, it was a choice to retire. I was already over 20 years. I was good at my job. People thought I was good at my job. I was highly ranked with amongst my peers. I could have gone back into that position and either done it again in some fashion or moved on to the next thing.
And your wife says
I
that your career ended up being really good for you after military because you're still involved.
Yeah, I have a small connection to it still. I still work with other submarine veterans and stuff, so that's good. I had to make that decision though, as to can I maintain recovery and still continue to serve and meet those height weight requirements, because those height weight requirements aren't going away. That's part of what makes it so complex, and I don't want to seem like bitter about it or something, because like everything else inside of the military, there has to be a standard. There has to be a standard for how far your sideburns go down and how big the earrings are that you wear if you're a woman and how long your nails can be if you're a woman and what kind of glasses you can wear. If you don't have standards, then the military falls apart, right? Because then you're going to have somebody who's going to be like, I'm going to wear hoop earrings. It's like, nope. The requirement says they have to be 1/8 of an inch, and that's it. And you have to have that written down somewhere. So it's the same thing, the height weight requirements. If you don't do that, then you're just going to have a bunch of overweight people in the military. And you can't have that either, because you don't want to be paying for people's freaking blood pressure medication and their diabetes medication, and whether or not they can carry a backpack and hike 20 miles up a mountain or go fight a fire in an engine room on a submarine. Or it just spirals out of control if you don't have those standards. So I get the need for the standards. I think that the military needs to acknowledge that there's a problem and educate its leadership on how the environment nurtures and causes eating disorders, to know some of the warning signs that are out there, that it could just be people's weight fluctuating. It's tough to just be like, oh, is this person using the restroom too often? That can't be a thing. But I think acknowledging that the environment helps to foster this mindset. I think another thing too is another thing to think about is that the military takes away a lot of other coping mechanisms that people have. And it also provides support for other maladaptive coping behaviors. If you're an alcoholic in the military, they'll take care of you. They'll send you to alcohol treatment. You quit smoking, they'll give you Chantix and they'll send you to smoking cessation classes. If you have other mental health struggles, there's things that they can do, but there's such a vacuum of knowledge about eating disorders that there isn't built into it. When I say that they take away those other coping behaviors, I think that my eating disorder got worse when I quit drinking and smoking, because those were things that I did to numb or control. And that's a common thing with people that develop eating disorders. Sometimes it stems from getting rid of other substances. Yeah, you can't smoke on a submarine, so a lot of people stop smoking. If you drink too much, if you have any kind of alcohol related incident, it's another kind of career killer. So a lot of people choose not to drink. So there's these other things that oftentimes people use as numbing effects that maybe, at least for me and for some of the other people that I've talked to that have struggled with eating disorders in the military, is it's like, hey, here's this thing that I can do that gives me like a fix. It gives me a high and it keeps my weight in line. I hate myself so much that I'm my own worst critic. So I'm doing really well in my evals and stuff because I'm my own worst enemy. You're never going to tell me something that I don't, you're never going to say anything you hate about me that I don't already hate way worse. So it's going to make you like a top performer. So it's like this sort of like negative reinforcement that's going on with the eating disorder behaviors. Another thing that I wanted to touch on that I didn't get a chance to touch on before, that makes eating disorders so complex and difficult to deal with, is that pretty much any form of substance abuse or addiction, the answer is abstinence. You abstain from the behavior. If you're an alcoholic, you don't go to the bar anymore, right? If you're struggling with heroin or fentanyl or meth or something like that, you remove yourself from the situations when you have your support network and your recovery, and you don't go underneath the bridge anymore. Like, you just don't do it. With an eating disorder, your drug of choice is food. So you cannot abstain from it. So it forces you into that confrontation on a hourly, daily basis, that you have to confront it in a way that other addictions, you don't have to. Where it's easy to say, God, I can't drink anymore. I'm not going to the bar. Well, guess what, man? You got to eat because you're hungry. And if you're not doing it, then you're just making the eating disorder worse. So that's part of what makes it super complicated and challenging.
Seems like it'd be really easy to go to orthorexia from that.
Sure. Yeah. That's why it's a spectrum. You know what I'm saying? Like many other mental health things or just mental things in general, it's a spectrum. Some people shift between bulimia and anorexia and orthorexia and other things that exist on the scale of what constitutes an eating disorder. I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about recovery,
Yes,
sort
please.
of what that looks
We
like.
we got down pretty far, like more of a
Yeah.
downer. Bring us some hope again.
Yeah. So I think recovery is, it's important to remember that recovery is nonlinear and your recovery is your recovery. And for me, what recovery comes down to is it's shifting your mindset, right? So talked about like slips and relapses and things.
Well,
Part
what's the
of
difference between a slip and a relapse?
mindset, I think it's entirely mindset. So here's the thing, right? Let's say in the beginnings, you're starting recovery, right? And you go 3 days without having a binge and a purge. The difference in what makes recovery successful or not is whether or not you go, oh my God, I went 3 days without having a binge. I haven't gone that long in years. That's amazing. What am I going to do to make it four next time? Or you can go, I went 3 days without having a binge and a purge, and I fucked it all up. And I did it. And then you allow yourself to like wallow in that. So it's the mindset of, I went a whole month without having a binge and a purge. That's amazing. 2 years ago, I could have never thought that that was possible. How do I make it six? How do I make it 10 weeks next time? And it's like whether or not you're learning what caused that. So that's like what a slip is to me, vice a relapse. Relapse is like where you allow yourself to fall into it and then you continue to punish yourself with those same behaviors and fall back into those old patterns. But I think it's that mindset of getting out of the self-hatred aspect of it, of I screwed it all up. I can't believe I did this. I'm a worthless piece of crap, which is like where your mind wants to go because it's that self-hatred piece of it, right? But it's the same information, it's the same data. You went 3 days without having a binge and a purge. Which way are you going to respond to the fact that that binge and purge happened? Are you going to sit there and try and learn from it and celebrate the fact that you went 72 hours and you made it, you ate 9 whole meals, put them all down? Or are you going to go, I screwed it all up. I suck. I'm never going to be able to do this. And then eventually, one day without binging and purging turns into a week. And maybe you mess up. And then a week, you're able to go 4 days. Like each time that it happens, you're able to learn and you're able to glean something and you're able to garner something and you're able to get better and develop intuition and recognize patterns and to learn and to really process why something happened. That's the important thing. I think it's very important to know that like you will slip up. Your recovery is not going to be perfect. And this goes for a lot of different things. This doesn't just go for eating disorder. This
I was
goes for
thinking,
like,
I've
you know,
said this
drug
recently
and
with
alcohol.
goals, just setting goals, anything. Uh,
Yeah.
that's
The
helpful
difference
to know
though, I
it's not
think,
like a different framework, different math or whatever for this.
yeah, it's the perspective, I think, though. The data is the same. It's the perspective on how you handle the event that matters and makes the difference into whether or not you can call your recovery successful or not. And for me, it's been, I don't know, it's been a long time since I've had a purge. I don't even think, like, I don't remember the last one. But it's like, if it were to happen again, I wouldn't think that like I've relapsed. I'd be like, oh man, what happened? Like, why did I allow this? What can I learn from this?
That self
Yeah,
check-in of what triggered it.
sure. 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, what was the situation? What was the food? What was your mindset like? What was your day like before? Taking stock of all those things. So I think that's like a really important thing to remember about any type of recovery from anything, though, is that I like to say, if you say it's like it's a hike, right? It's less about the destination and more about the journey to get there. If you go on a hike, it's never going to be like a straight line. Have you been to Hawaii?
Yes.
Have you done Coco Head?
I was too pregnant.
That one? Oh,
I
okay.
will in
Coco
March.
Head's Coco Head's like the only hike that's like a straight line, and it's awful.
Oh,
Hate it.
then maybe I won't do that one.
It's a great view. Now it's like a
Okay,
nice view, but
then I'll do
basically
it.
it's Coco Head is like a straight line and it's very linear. Most hikes are not like that. Most hikes have valleys and dips and turns and things like that. And a lot of it is similar to like the allegory of like the iron rod or something like that. It's about holding on to it and realizing that you may slip, you may stumble, you might sprain your ankle, but it's about moving forward and progressing to getting to that ultimate goal. And that goal can be very amorphous. Your recovery is what you want it to be. Recovery for one person might look completely different for somebody else, and that's okay.
So with this, I know we're getting close on time. It sounds like part of your recovery was also getting more in tune with yourself. I've been at your house with your wife, and you were excited about a figurine that you're painting for a game that you're playing. And I wonder how much that has been part of your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I rediscovered a love for art actually in art therapy at treatment. I never touched a paintbrush before that. So it was like just channeling like that part of me. And again, I think that kind of goes back to finding things that bring me joy and reconnecting with my true self, my authentic self. Yeah, art has definitely been something that's been a blessing. I don't paint as much as I like to or as much as I should, but every once in a while, like when I do it, every time I do it, it's kind of like working out or something. It's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then you do it and you're like, man, that felt really good. I should probably do that some more. For anyone that's listening, be it mental health struggles of any kind, male or female or somewhere in between, or specific to eating disorder things, I think it's important that we share our stories with these things, that we don't allow ourselves to suffer in silence because there's tremendous weight and burden that can be lifted off by being open about it. And for me, I alluded to it a little bit, like I'm very grateful that I was open and honest about that stuff because people have come back since and told me that they're grateful that they were able to make their own decisions and come forward and get help in some fashion. So I just want to continue to do that, and hopefully somebody else will pay it forward and help people out on a level like that.
This is exactly why, as soon as you had that post explaining your eating disorder and what you wanted to do, I immediately reached out to you saying, I want you on my podcast when you're ready, because I know how passionate you get about things. And I know that this is absolutely your passion. And that there is so much healing that comes from helping heal other people. So, as you're sharing
Sure.
your story and helping other people on their healing journey, you're healing. And I'm glad that I was able to be a very small part of this. Thank you for being on.
Thanks for giving me a platform to talk about it. So I hope, like
Absolutely.
I said, if there's just one person out there that's, hey, maybe I do have a problem with this and I'm going to get help with it, like that's what it's all about right there. So
Yeah, exactly. And the links to the things he mentioned are in the show notes. And knowing Geoff, he will be giving me other links that we did not mention. So check out the show notes. And if you know anybody struggling with this or that knows somebody else, please share this. The whole point in this is to light the path for other people towards better wellness. So thank you.
awesome. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. I am your host, Autumn Carter, a certified life coach dedicated to empowering individuals to rediscover their identity, find balance amidst chaos, strengthen relationships, and pursue their dreams. My goal is to help people thrive in every aspect of their lives. I hope today's discussion inspired you and offered valuable insights. Stay engaged with our wellness community by signing up for my newsletter at wellnessineveryseason.com/free resources. When you join, you'll have the option to receive a 5-day guide called Awaken and Unwind. 5 days to mastering your mornings and evenings, along with free guides, special offers on my programs, practical tips, personal stories, and much more, all related to wellness, by signing up for both offers on the page. Don't miss out on these valuable resources designed to help you thrive in every area of wellness. Join today and start your journey to wellness in every season. Your shares, subscriptions, and reviews help us reach more people seeking empowerment. So please spread the word about our podcast and about our newsletter. Thank you for being a part of our podcast community. I look forward to continuing our conversation, sharing stories, and exploring wellness in all of its aspects. Take care until our next episode. You can also work with me one-on-one or on demand through one of my programs by visiting wellnessineveryseason.com/programs. One last thing to cover the show legally, I am a certified life coach giving general advice. So think of this more as a self-help book. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, so this podcast shouldn't be taken as a replacement for professional guidance from a doctor or therapist. If you want personal one-on-one coaching from a certified life and parenting coach, go to my website, wellnessineveryseason.com. That's where you can get personalized coaching from me for you. See you in next week's episode.